Companies like Square Enix and Capcom have no idea what gamers want, and with every remake, remaster, and reboot they pump out with altered content, they're just pushing away paying customers. And now Capcom is being accused of race swapping one of the characters in Dead Rising from Asian to white, likely due to racial stereotypes. I have a few different things to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, we see this happen a ton with remakes and remasters, especially from companies like Capcom. Look at the Resident Evil remakes. For example, they've all gone over well. Don't get me wrong, they have been good, but at the same time, we are seeing altered content and outfits, character models toned down, dialogue removed so that it doesn't offend anyone. And this is why I talk about situations like this so much on this channel, because first of all, you shouldn't be going back and altering previous content, but we are getting to a point where before titles release, whether it's video games, movies, TV shows, before they release, they are sanitized completely so that they hopefully do not offend anyone. And then we just end up with bland and boring content. And that's not what I want to sit and watch or what I want to sit and play. I want things to be edgy. I want things to be crazy and unpredictable. And that's just not what we're getting a lot of the times anymore. And it says video game publisher and developer Capcom is now being accused of race swapping one of their psychopath bosses in Dead Rising from Asian to white, likely due to racial stereotype. Now, of course, companies constantly push out remakes and remasters because they know it's an easy way to make money. People have nostalgia for these franchises, for, in this case, Dead Rising, and they know that they are going to get people to open up their wallets. But when I see something like this, such a blatantly obvious change, it instantly makes me not want to swipe my credit card, and it really makes other people second guess a purchase as well. Now, we do not know the exact reason, but this is a very, very likely one. We see developers like this all the time now change around content and characters so that they try to not offend people. And apparently, it's not okay for an Asian man to be depicted as a psychopath anymore. Only white men are allowed to be depicted in such a negative way. Of course, as you can see here, this is the original character model for Larry Chang in the original game. And now we have looks like Big Al from Toy Story sitting here, looking at the camera. I mean, it's the same exact pose. It's a very similar, facial expression. And it just, to me, looks so flat and so bland. It just looks like, yeah, this was clearly a change made for modern audiences, aka sensitive snowflakes on social media. And this is supposed to be a remaster, and there shouldn't be any changes when I'm buying a remaster or a remake besides updated graphics. If they're re-recording voice lines, all the dialogue should be the same unless they're adding to what's already there and not altering. Updated gameplay, things like that. We should not see any drastic changes like this because it takes away from the essence of the original game, and most of the time, of course, it's better to just go back and play the original instead of playing a remaster remake, especially when they're 50 to 70 freaking dollars, which is insane when you can buy an original game for maybe $10, $20 maximum. It's just not worth it when you have to now sit here and think of what else did they change. If this is one alteration, what else have they altered within this? And that sucks to have to constantly sit and think about. Now, of course, this isn't very shocking to see because we have seen this animus against white men, especially when it comes to the video game industry. But this accusation also has merit, given Capcom had just recently announced its localization team was altering video games for cultural adaptation, preserving context, and inclusive storytelling. I did make a video on that. It will be linked down below, but they had this mega thread on Twitter/X talking about Things like adapting humor and wit. Humor often relies on cultural references and wordplay, making it challenging aspect. Translators must carefully navigate puns, jokes, and cultural references to maintain the intended comedic effect. This requires a deep understanding of the target audience's sense of humor while staying true to the original wit. Also, things like inclusive language and representation, but also cultural sensitivity in characters. Character design and development must be culturally sensitive. What may be acceptable in one culture might be offensive in another. Localizers playing a crucial role in ensuring that characters are relatable and respectful, avoiding stereotypes or other references that could be perceived as negative in specific cultures. So, admitting here that they are willing to tone things down to try to reach a broader audience and not offend anyone. But when you try to offend no one and you're trying to make content for everyone, you're really making content for no one or a very small group of people, which ultimately isn't going to make you money. Yes, sometimes games have jokes and have references that could be a little bit shocking to somebody out there, but if they were going to get offended over that, they probably were going to find something else to be offended by, and ultimately they wouldn't purchase your product in the first place. I mean, even with this change, the people who would have complained about, Larry in this case, most likely are going to steer clear from the remaster because they're going to sit and say, oh, well, you had that offensive content in the original game in the first place, so I'm not going to take a chance in case you didn't alter something else within the title. I mean, it is a very slippery slope when it comes to censorship. And while this isn't very surprising, it is definitely disappointing, but there's also more disappointing news surrounding this because we actually have information that pertains to paywalls because the Dead Rising remaster is now locking the classic Frank West behind a pre-order paywall. It says the original Dead Rising was of course released in 2006 on the 360 and later ported to other platforms, and as spotted by IGN, Capcom is of course taking pre-orders on their official website, but as you might expect from a AAA video game publisher in 2024, pre-ordering Dead Rising comes with some bonuses, and one of the perks is a skin for Frank West that turns him back into his more pudgy and younger looking self as seen in the original game, which is of course absurd. This is not okay at all whatsoever, yet they think that nobody's gonna have a problem with this. Why wouldn't you just offer the original character? It's like they purposefully changed him so that if you want his original look, you have to pay for it. All of the characters should have looked exactly the same besides slightly improved graphics and textures, not major changes. So at this point in time, I'm just going to say I'm personally going to steer clear of this remaster, at least for the time being, until maybe they address all of these things or they revert them. I don't think that's going to happen, of course, but in the perfect world, they would actually listen to our feedback, even though, again, I don't think that's going to happen. But I personally am steering clear from this with all of the changes they've made and also the ridiculous paywalls with the new character models they've added. But for now, that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.